Prime Minister's in a lot of trouble, isn't he?
Well, look, actually, I think this will be an opportunity today to have this vote. I hope that MPs will overwhelmingly support him. I believe that they will. That will, I hope as well, but draw a line behind some of this. There's been speculation for weeks now. And then we can move on. And I think the choice is going to be very clear. We've got a Prime Minister who's got the big calls right on the vaccine rollout, on the getting the economy fired up, the leadership he's shown on Ukraine. We've got a whole packed agenda. We've got a general election in less than 2 years, packed agenda on levelling up, on skills, of course, the cost of living, the crime and law enforcement, which is one of my areas, working with Priti Patel, or we can turn inwards with what I think the public will view as a rather self-indulgent bout of talking to ourselves. And so I think it's important people get behind the Prime Minister, and I'm confident they will.
Why do you think they will? Why are you confident that they will?
Well, I think the conversations that I've had overwhelmingly, people want to see us put the Partygate issues behind us. Clearly mistakes were made. I think the Prime Minister has addressed that. He's overhauled number 10. He's shown the contrition, made the apology. But also, we've got this packed agenda, which is where people really want our focus to be. And I think that the idea that we go into what will be months, not days, not weeks, but months, of what will be viewed by the public as a conversation amongst ourselves with all the things going on, both the cost of living here at home, but also internationally, things like Ukraine. I think that will feel to many people as self-indulgent at this important crossroads. So I hope people get behind the Prime Minister. And as I say, I'm confident they will. And that's based on the conversations that I've had.
Although we know that at least 54 people, at least 54, have decided that he is not the right person for the job. How many votes would he have to win by in order for him to continue to enjoy your support? Or, looking at it another way, how many might the rebels have to get in order for you to think twice?
I'm not going to start speculating on the numbers game. I know you have plenty of people that will come on and do so. I would just encourage as many people as possible, and we'll be speaking to MPs today to encourage them to support the Prime Minister, because it is either getting on with the job on the cost of living, on the NHS recovery from the pandemic, our reforms from social care to the Bill of Rights, and that packed agenda with less than 2 years to an election, or a conversation amongst ourselves for weeks and months. I do not believe anyone who's got a plan or who's articulated what will otherwise be viewed as a rather self-indulgent internal conversation amongst the party itself.
Jacob Rees-Mogg says he only needs one vote. He only needs to win by one vote. He will continue to be Prime Minister, and he will continue to enjoy Jacob Rees-Mogg's 100% support. Would you say the same thing?
Yes, I'm fully supportive of the Prime Minister, and I'm confident he'll win tonight.
Even if he only wins by one vote, you still think he's the right person for the job?
Look, I think he's the right person for the job. As I said, I'm not going to speculate on numbers. I'm confident he'll win by a lot more than one.
Do you think you'll win the 2 by-elections coming up?
Well, by-elections are always difficult. There's always the local as well as the specific circumstances that give rise to them. What I'd say is we've got a big majority, a big working majority. We've got a packed agenda. We often see midterm blues at this point in the electoral cycle. But the key thing is actually the difference in the polls is not particularly great by or particularly significant by historical standards, where you think where Labour would need to be, including if you look at the local elections, which is also pointed out as a barometer. And we've got this very important agenda. And we've come through a very difficult time for the country, above all, but also in British politics with the pandemic. I think the war in Ukraine is testing us in all sorts of ways, both as a country. I think the Prime Minister has shown the leadership on that. But of course, it's had an impact on the cost of living and energy bills. And what we really want to do is be focused with a laser-like precision on those bread and butter issues that the people of this country care about. And of course, a leadership process, once that's underway, I believe will distract from all of those important things that, whether you're in the suburbs or in the cities or in the rural areas of our great country, I think it will feel like a distraction, and I think it will feel like a very self-indulgent one. So what I'm saying is people should come together. We've got a packed agenda. It's incredibly positive. We're the only ones with a plan to tackle these issues, and I think we need to get on with that job.
And yet, people who are royalists gather at St Paul's Cathedral on Friday and boo this Prime Minister and his wife as they're walking up the steps to mark the 70th anniversary of Her Majesty on the throne. Is this party tone deaf? Are you not listening to that?
Well, in fairness, people were cheering as well as booing.
They were, absolutely, but they were booing.
That's part and parcel of politics, and politics has become more factionalised and polarised these days. But of course we listen. But what ultimately people care about is not whether you've got a few hecklers at some public event, but whether you're focused on their priorities. And the great silent majority of this country, I think, expect our attention to be on those issues. And that's again why getting on with the job at hand, the packed agenda, the positive agenda we've got, building off the Queen's speech and the legislative agenda, as well as the practical issues around the cost of living with the £15 billion package of support, I think is so important. And anything that distracts from that, I think, does lead to more consternation and more apathy amongst our electorate.
Well, if not the hecklers, as you describe them at St Paul's, what about the anti-corruption czar who's resigned this morning, saying he can no longer work with the Prime Minister?
Well, look, I know John Penrose is, I've known him since I've joined the House of Commons as an MP, and there'll be, of course, we've got a leadership vote later on, so you'll have the chance to hear from all the dissenters. All I would say is that the overwhelming majority of people that I talk to, MPs, want us to put these distractions behind us. I'm not minimising the Partygate issues; they're significant, but the investigation has concluded. The Sue Gray report has been published. The Prime Minister has acted, and what I think the MPs I talk to overwhelmingly say to me is that they want us to get on with the job and talk about the issues that their constituents care about. And the biggest distraction of that would be a leadership contest, which would last for not days, not weeks, but months. And we know that the public are particularly unattracted to divided parties. I think it's the time to get behind the Prime Minister and get on with the job. Well,
if not Partygate, what then about Jesse Norman, who was a former Treasury Minister, I believe, stepped down in September of last year? He's called some of the actions of the Prime Minister this morning in his resignation letter, or his suggestion that he wants the Prime Minister to resign, as grotesque.
You'll hear from all the dissenters. That's why we're having this vote. But of course, the quiet, silent majority will actually get to have their say, and the question and the choice will be: do they agree? And I respect Jesse and John, but I disagree with them fundamentally. I think this Prime Minister's got the big calls right on the vaccine rollout, getting the economy fired up. Fastest growing economy in the G7 last year, second fastest predicted this year. We've got then, of course, a series of challenges on the cost of living, but we're the ones with the plan on energy bills. We're cutting national insurance in July. We've got the energy rebate, £400 a cash grant in October. We're the ones with the plan getting on with that job. I think anything that just detracts or distracts from that is something that the public will regard as unappealing and ultimately self-indulgent. So I think it's a time for unity and for moving forward.
Could you not do that with a different Prime Minister?
Well, it will take weeks. It will take months. I don't think the party has a settled view. And there will always be people that will disagree with whoever the leader is. That's natural because you have a vote and we decide things in a democratic way. And I think the net upshot will be more disunity and more distraction and more internal conversations within the Conservative Party rather than the outward-facing focus on the public's priorities. And I think that's what people want most of all right now. And that's certainly what I think our constituents and the public want.
We heard from Sir Graham Brady saying proxy votes will be made available to those MPs who cannot find themselves in the chamber or in the House of Commons today. Will that also include the unnamed Conservative MP who's accused of rape?
I don't know. That will be for the 1922 committee to decide that, and I'm afraid I just don't know the answer to that question.
Well, you're a lawyer, and of course, and Justice Secretary as well. Do you think that it should include that MP?
Look, we've answered all of these questions in relation to the whip and the process that's going to be followed. There's obviously not been a charge yet. I do not want to say anything which prejudices that.
Well, of course, it's not going to prejudice that at all, is it, Deputy Prime Minister? I'm just asking you, as a senior politician, also as a lawyer, also as the Justice Secretary, do you think somebody who has been accused of rape and is no longer allowed in the chamber, at least for now, should be allowed to vote tonight?
I'm not going to say anything which comments on the matter which is subject to the police investigation described. I think that's the right thing for me as the Justice Secretary to do.
Why would it impact on that?
I think any commentary, particularly from someone who holds the office that I do, could be regarded as either interfering one way or another, and I will want to avoid that scrupulously.
Even if they are anonymous, we don't know who they are?
Yes.